Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Coming up tonight on our News, a new VAT holiday announced for hurricane season. A PLP MP warns budget effects could be calamitous. Plus, the Christian Council slams the U.S. Embassy's decision to hoist the pride flag. Welcome to our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, the government will introduce a value-added tax holiday in July for hurricane preparations. The MINNIS administration will also commence a back-to-school VAT holiday ahead of the new school year for the second consecutive year. Jasmine Brown reports.
During his 2-hour communication, the Prime Minister touched on a number of issues as he revealed new VAT initiatives as well as hit out at the opposition. However, one thing he did not talk about was the looming debt.
This year, for the first time, we will undertake a VAT holiday for hurricane preparations, and this will be during the month of July. This will assist Bahamians and residents to enjoy VAT-free shopping on a range of critical hurricane supplies and equipment.
Dr. MINNIS said the Ministry of Finance will provide the details of the dates and the items to be included for that VAT-free shopping. As it relates to back-to-school VAT holiday, it will happen again in August.
He then introduced the back-to-school VAT holiday last August. And this provided Bahamian households with VAT-free shopping on a range of school supplies.
The Prime Minister also announcing funding support and consultancy assistance for Bahamians entering the vacation homes rental market, which he said is booming. The PM said in March 2021, some 4,222 Bahamians and residents participated in this market, earning more than $14 million that month. During his 2-hour contribution, MINNIS also lashed out of the opposition and its, quote, jokey claim that his administration had no plan or new ideas to grow the economy.
The PLP desperately want to get back, as people would say. What was that? The cookie jar? At the cookie jar, I guess. But just every Bahamian child knows Cookie Monster and Sesame Street. Like Cookie Monster, the PLP has the history of raiding what? The cookie jar. Oh. They are very greedy for cookies. They seem every time they get a chance, they attack the cookie jar without mercy. Every time Cookie Monster sees some cookies, he can't help himself.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, EXUMAS and Ragged Island MP Chester Cooper calling the government's budget a sheer fantasy that would stunt growth in the country for decades unless its policies are reversed quickly. Kyle Joaquin has more.
You're a national embarrassment.
From its story and recovery efforts to its handling of the pandemic and now its 2021-2022 budget, Cooper called the MINNIS administration a failure. He called the budget a disaster that could lead to calamity with short-term thinking and ignorance of the country's debt position and what he called reckless electioneering.
The incompetent response of Dorian and COVID has left the country worse off. No, we didn't have to be this bad.
The PLP deputy leader accused the MINNIS administration of living in a fairy tale, making inaccurate projections and painting a picture to the country that is not realistic.
And you won't meet your target now with this Alice in Wonderland budget because it's an election budget. And you will spend all of what is budgeted and more, I predict, in your delusional attempt to cling on to power.
Calling it ostrich economics, Cooper then pointed to the country's deficit, saying the government is playing games while the country is in a precarious position. Cooper says the Bahamas has a debt crisis nearing, where the country's borrowing is at staggering and unsustainable levels.
We are getting to a point of no return. And a new administration will have to look under every rock and make some tough choices early on to stabilize the situation.
Cooper also pointing to the government's handling of the pandemic, highlighting no provision for free testing and numerous restrictions.
What you did was to squander 2 golden opportunities to show leadership, to show strength, and to bring the country together. But every time you sowed division,
do that. You can't bring your whole team together. You can't do that.
you sowed disunity, and you blew it.
Break up the party.
You failed us.
Then there was the word transparency, a term Cooper says the FNM campaigned heavily on, but failed to practice while in office.
We have no report to date on the donations for Dorian. And the people of Abaco and the people of Grand Bahama are still asking where the Dorian hurricane money gone. And let's not forget, the Oban files are still missing. We never got a report on the removal of the BPL board. You never laid that IMF loan agreement. And now you have a new one from the World Bank and you ain't laid that either.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Fort Charlotte MP Mark Humes calling on the Prime Minister to show him some respect. This after Dr. Hubert MINNIS referred to Free National Movement candidate Drumiko Archer as the next Member of Parliament for that constituency that Humes now represents.
I think the current Member of Parliament sits here in the House of Assembly, the duly elected and unceremoniously deselected Member of Parliament sits here. I think it's quite disrespectful that my party would speak to the next, well, refer to him as the next Member of Parliament. There's no guarantee. The people still have a say in that matter.
Humes says not only was he unceremoniously dumped by the FNM, he's also being disrespected by the party.
I called Drumiko Archer. I called the next Member of Parliament, Drumiko Archer.
I wouldn't ask for it to be stricken from the record. I would just ask for more respect for the current sitting Member of Parliament until such time as I graciously decide that I'm going to move aside, if that's what I'm going to do.
Dr. MINNIS says he meant no disrespect toward Humes. Well, the Bahamas Christian Council slamming the raising of the pride flag at the U.S. Embassy as insensitive. Jillian Gray has that.
It's an agenda that does not line up with Bahamian values, says Christian Council President Delton Fernandez, who slammed the raising of the pride flag at the U.S. Embassy as insensitive and offensive to the social fabric of the Bahamas.
In fact, it was emphatically said that this was something they were going to do on behalf of a president that is not the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and an agenda that is going to be worldwide and move through the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And it helped us to realize that they have an agenda, a social agenda, that they hope to push through the Bahamas, and yesterday was the beginning of that agenda.
Pride Month is celebrated around the world in June in honor of the LGBTQI community. Fernandez says he has no problem with Pride events once they don't infringe on the rights of others.
There's no hatred, there's no anger, there's no malice towards you. We just do not accept the purport, what you're putting forth, but we love you, and we will share the same savior that we share with the heterosexual, we will share it with the homosexual community.
The raising of the pride flag was bittersweet for NATINO THOMPSON, interim president of the LGBTQI Association, as he said he would have preferred it to be coming from the Bahamas government. He slammed the Christian Council's statement as hypocritical.
To choose or have their define their own sexual orientation, and they don't support the mistreatment, and then go right back and talk about how the Bahamas is has this ideology of traditional family with one man, one woman. I'm like, that's the violence right there.
Thompson says they have reached out and are hoping to have a conversation with the Christian community.
I hope that we could actually have the dialogue and understand each other, and even if we can't come to an agreement, that we respect each other enough to know that LGBTQ people deserve the same rights.
Taxicab driver Irvin Taylor is stationed just a few steps away from where the flag is hoisted.
America, it feeds us. They are running from the COVID. The male, whoever he or she wants to become part of, what can a small island like us do? And we basically depending on them.
Now, the LGBTQI community say they have a full slate of events scheduled for October under the theme, "We are people just like you." They say the goal of those events is basically to create more inclusion within the Bahamas. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, temperatures cooling off this evening. Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with the latest.
Thanks, Christina, and welcome on this humid Wednesday evening. Outside our studios, we have mostly cloudy skies, most of that being high and mid-level clouds moving across the area, but we will continue to see some low-level clouds moving. Southeast wind 6 knots, we're calling it humid, temperatures feeling like mid to upper 70s. Satellite view, that weather pattern across us continuing to be wet with showers, widespread showers and some isolated thunderstorms. The weather pattern now is actually shifted towards the southeast and central Bahamas as that low-pressure system continues to trigger some showers. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on our news, charges filed following that EXUMA drug bust, plus what prompted student nurses to protest in Rawson Square. Stay with us.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Three men were charged in the magistrate's court today in connection with that $872,000 drug bust on EXUMA. Bethany McDermott reports.
42-year-old Basil Johnson in the blue hoodie, 41-year-old Alfredo Poitier, and 49-year-old Kevin Dean in the navy blue jacket pleaded not guilty to charges of conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs with the intent to supply and possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply. According to police reports, sometime after 12 p.m. Sunday, officers from the EXUMA district, while on routine patrol, spotted two males on a blue vessel. After seeing police, the captain sped off, but the vessel was intercepted following a brief chase. A search of the cabin resulted in the discovery of 4 crocus sacks containing a grassy-like substance believed to be marijuana. Both men were arrested. Another search revealed an additional 35 crocus sacks of suspected marijuana. The drugs weighed 872 pounds with a street value of $872,000. In court today, Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt granted the men $30,000 bail with 2 sureties. They returned to court July 1st for a status hearing. Also arraigned before the Chief Magistrate was 36-year-old Brandon Strawn, seen in the navy blue shirt in connection with that $1.6 million drug bust on Cat Island on May 10th. He was charged with conspiracy to possess dangerous drugs with the intent to supply and conspiracy to import dangerous drugs. This discovery came as a result of a joint operation between local and international law enforcement agencies. The Abaco resident also faces 1 count of possession of dangerous drugs with the intent to supply and 1 count of importation of dangerous drugs. He pleaded not guilty to the charges. Strawn was also granted $30,000 bail and returned to court on September 7th. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
A small group of nursing students protested outside Parliament today for the right to work in the hospital and complete crucial training hours toward their degrees. Jared Higgs reports.
Free us so you can degree us! Free us so you can degree us!
As a light drizzle came down, this small group of student nurses made a statement on Bay Street.
We're not graduating this year because of the COVID-19 pandemic and because we cannot complete our hours. We understand that the pandemic happened. However, we need protocols in place in the healthcare system as to where we will be able to go back into the hospital.
The group say their careers have been delayed by the pandemic as they've been unable to work crucial hours towards their degrees. 20-year-old Shekinah Curry is one of 84 students in her cohort. She questions why they aren't being treated the same as other students in other healthcare-related professions.
I feel extremely disrespected to be a fourth-year nursing student and to not be able to go into the hospital.
These students say they are willing to battle COVID-19 on the front lines, and some are even willing to be vaccinated. Their small protest comes as the country grapples with a third wave of coronavirus cases and a shortage of nurses. Health Minister RENWARD was recently asked about that shortage and whether student nurses or foreigners could be used to fill the gap.
Into the system so that they can bring their know-how, their requisite skills to the table to help to assist. You would remember in the second wave, we spoke about potentially bringing in nurses from abroad, though we did not pursue it. It is still a consideration, but right now we're seeking to deal with our own domestic circumstances.
BNU President AHANCHA Williams joined those student nurses, but she doesn't represent them. She only represents those licensed nurses, but she still says that they have her support.
The country has a shortage of nurses, and these are the futuristic nurses. You can see they're all young. They don't look no age like me. Most of them can be my daughter or my son. So we need that strength. We need them.
But 22-year-old Grace LIGHTBOURNE, another nursing student, admits that she feels overlooked. She says they are bonded to work for the government in any event, so why not start now?
We have our Bahamian nurses trained and ready and able to get into the clinical field, but you're holding us back, and every week, every month, we see that not only are we losing nurses, but we're crying about a nursing shortage in the newspaper and on the media outlets, but we're right here.
Reporting for Our News, I am Jared Higgs.
The Public Hospitals Authority said in a statement that due to COVID-19 protocols, students from the University of the West Indies and the University of the Bahamas were unable to access the clinical environment at its institutions. However, on May 10th, students from the Trained Clinical Nurse Program commenced their 14-week rotation, starting with Princess Margaret Hospital. Officials say logistics for the re-entry of Bachelor of Science nursing students should be completed shortly.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Up next, Pinewood flooding at the center of a heated house row, plus Marcellus Hall has hoops action when our news returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
This is our news. Welcome back. The decades-long issue of flooding in Pinewood Gardens was the topic of a heated back and forth in Parliament today. Pinewood MP Ruben Ramming claimed Englerston MP Glenys Hannah Martin told him, "As you get up to speak, Pinewood is flooding," which he took offense to.
That was an inappropriate statement, knowing the gravity, the pain, the suffering, the anguish that people feel about the flooding in Pinewood. The city didn't even say that. And unless he's disowning the statement, I am justified in saying that.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, I want to put the record to reflect his opinion is false and is perhaps based on the fact that this member feels a level of failure after 4 years of representation in Pinewood, Mr. Speaker.
$4 million of the current budget has been allocated to address flooding in that area, a move Ramming applauded.
You left a budget with nothing in it for Pinewood. Pinewood had a cabinet minister. Pinewood had an AG. Pinewood, under you guys, had powerful people. And all they got now is a bus bus driver who believe in God and have respect for leadership.
And in sports tonight, the Suns and Bahamian DeAndre Ayton one step closer to eliminating the defending champions. Marcellus Hall has the rundown.
All right, thanks, Christina. Welcome to our sports on a Wednesday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. If in case you haven't heard by now, the Phoenix Suns are more than just a regular season team. They're in the playoffs and making some noise. Last night, up against the Lakers, looking to take a 3-2 series lead. DeAndre Ayton, part of that squad. Let's take a look and see how it all turned out. Don't look now, but DeAndre Ayton and the Phoenix Suns one step closer to advancing in the NBA playoffs. Suns destroying the defending world champions LA Lakers 115-85 last night, taking a 3-2 lead in their best-of-7 first-round series. Ayton needing to play just 27 minutes in the lopsided win. He finished with 8 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. Devin Booker, he led the Suns offensively with 30 points. Game 6, a potential closeout game for Phoenix. That'll take place in Los Angeles come Thursday. And how about Jonquel Jones and the Connecticut Sun? Well, they continued their winning ways in the WNBA as they took down the Las Vegas Aces last night, 74-67. Jonquel, 28 points, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 2 assists. She threw in a steal in there as well. Connecticut improves to 7-2 on the season, still first in the Eastern Conference. A couple of days off now for the squad with their next game on Saturday when they take on the New York Liberty. So I guess from the Bahamas, Suns and Sun all seem to be working out pretty well for our basketball players. And so we'll keep an eye on their situation as the season progresses. That's your check on sports for you here on this Wednesday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you.
Thanks, Marcellus. Grand Bahama Union celebrate Labor Week. Find out more after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back to our news. A few more thunderstorms ahead. Greg is back in the Weather Center with the details.
Thanks again, Christina, and welcome back for our second look at our weather. Taking a look at our satellite view around the region, that upper level low that was across the northwest Bahamas has actually shifted across central Cuba. You notice a bit of a spin there. That's combining with some tropical moisture moving out of the southeast across the area, triggering widespread showers and thunderstorms. Big cluster across the southeast Bahamas. We will continue to see this weather pattern over the next day or two before things clear out, but the high pressure system will continue to generate some very rough boating conditions over the next couple of days. Speaking of boating, for all areas tonight through tomorrow, southeast winds 15 to 20 knots, seas running 4 to 6, caution flag posted for you. Low tide will be at 9:08 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Monday. All's quiet in the tropics. One more day of some rainfall. That's a look at our weather. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Greg. Labor Week activities continuing on Grand Bahama tomorrow with a night of labor. One of the honorees is BUT Area Vice President Quinton LaRota. As unions celebrate 60 years of labor legislation, LaRota says it's also about Bahamian history, not just strides in the trade union movement.
Every significant achievement that the country has done has happened on the backs of the labor movement. The labor movement paved the way for the workers' rights, for the minimum wage, for independence, majority rule. All of those things, all of it is on the back of labor. All the early leaders in the government of both the PLP and the FNM were borrowed and came out of the labor movement. So you cannot talk about a Bahamas without talking about labor. And so it is a level of significance beyond which I'm able to articulate.
Activities on the island include a motorcade and rally on Labor Day to discuss workers' concerns. Well, thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Christina Dragovich. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.